The story begins with someone barely managing to stay on a tightrope. Students gossip about how he just got into another fight, calling him nothing but trouble. Even the parents discuss how dangerous he is. Everyone believes he's too dangerous to even look at, but it's to be expected. After all, he doesn't know how to interact with people. They insult his appearance, criticizing how he refuses to dye his hair black. Even the color of one of his eyes is wrong, leading them to believe he must be cursed. Everyone thinks he's disgusting. Eventually, the boy falls off the rope. We then meet our protagonist, an angry young man named Sakura. He explains that he only respects the strong and couldn't care less about the weak. Nearby, a group of guys harass a girl, asking if she wants to go with them. She would love to smash some eggs over their heads, but that would be a waste of good eggs. One of them warns her not to act so stuck-up and prevents her from leaving. Sakura, watching from a distance, expresses his hatred for weak people who think they are strong. He steps in, telling the gang that it's way too early in the day to be acting so pathetic. The leader tries to attack him, but unfortunately for him, he is exactly the kind of person Sakura despises. Sakura easily takes him down, wondering what could possibly be going through his head to make him think he's strong when he's not. Sakura demands they remember his name and face, so they can warn all the weaklings to run when they see him. But he doesn't stop there, he also wants them to spread his name to strong people, so they can find him and fight him. He declares, "I am Sakura Hakura from Furin High School." After dealing with the gang, Sakura leaves, but the girl stops him to say thank you. He is confused, no one has ever thanked him before. She confirms she meant it, but Sakura quickly clarifies that he didn't do it to save her, he only beat them up because they annoyed him. He declines her offer to eat something, but she ends up feeding him anyway. She quickly figures out that he isn't from this town, noting that it's rare for outsiders to visit. She explains that the gang he just fought has been causing a lot of problems, and public safety in the town has become nearly non-existent. However, she admits that she isn't from this town either and introduces herself as Tachibana. Sakura is bewildered by her kindness. Most people would be afraid of him, especially after watching him beat up 5 guys. Begrudgingly, he eats the food she offers. To his surprise, it's amazing. He asks if her restaurant does take-off, but she corrects him, realizing he meant to say take-out. Tachibana notices his unusual hair and eye color, but instead of reacting with disgust, she expresses curiosity. Sakura immediately assumes she wants to fight, as that's the usual response he gets. However, Tachibana is simply amazed. Normally, people are freaked out by his appearance and demand that he dye his hair. But to Sakura, looks don't matter in a fight. That's why he came to Furin High. It's a school known for having the worst academic students but the best fighters. A place where factions brawl every day to decide who's on top. Their dedication to fighting is so strong that they even fight on holidays. Sakura is determined to become the top dog. Tachibana teases him for already wearing his school uniform, even though school doesn't start until tomorrow. Embarrassed, Sakura explains that he just moved here and didn't have anything else to wear. She laughs at him, and as always, Sakura resorts to his usual response, threatening to fight. Just then, an elderly customer almost forgets his to-go bag, but Sakura reminds him. As Sakura heads home, he reflects on the strange interaction. The old man even gave him some candy and told Tachibana to thank him. He isn't used to so much kindness, so he dismisses the entire town as weird, including Tachibana. He wonders why they aren't wary of him. Normally, people don't trust him. Once, he picked up someone's wallet, and they accused him of stealing it. Tachibana then tells him that while coming to Furin High was the right choice, he will never become the top dog. Shocked, Sakura challenges her statement. She acknowledges that he may have strong muscles, but insists that he still won't reach the top. The problem, she explains, is that he is alone. Furious, Sakura declares that he is not weak and doesn't need anyone else to win. As he leaves, Tachibana clarifies that she wasn't talking about physical strength. She suggests that he meet some Furin students, as they might change his perspective. Nearby, a group of thugs wreak havoc. A poor lady calls for help. Sakura runs into the gang from earlier, and their leader taunts him, calling him Furin trash and mocking his appearance. However, the gang is shocked when they realize that his hair and eye color are natural. They had assumed it was just a terrible cosplay, but now they find it even more disgusting. Sakura smiles. This is the reaction he is used to, the disgust that he has grown accustomed to. But it's okay because he has already given up on trying to change it. All that matters is proving his worth through fighting. The gang declares war on Furin for what Sakura did, but he isn't listening. Instead, he's still fixated on Tachibana's words, "You won't be the top dog because you're alone." Frustrated, he punches the leader again, declaring that he isn't the one avoiding people. He reflects on his appearance. He knows he looks strange, but he never did anything to the people who insult him. This is just who he is. As the gang swarms him, he fights back relentlessly. Even though he's outnumbered, his superior skills keep him ahead. Suddenly, one of the thugs grabs Tachibana as a hostage. But he pays dearly for it. Sakura instantly knocks him out. Tachibana thanks him again, but he insists that he only fought because they pissed him off. The gang tries to use a knife, but Sakura tells them to keep the fight clean. However, one manages to cut his leg, putting him in a bad spot. This is why he doesn't defend people. Helping others never ends well for him. Just as a thug prepares to bash his skull in with a bat, a new figure appears, blocking the attack with his back. Sakura notices that the stranger is wearing a Furin uniform. The newcomer tells Tachibana not to mention this to a certain someone. Then, he wipes out the bat wielder and furiously scolds the gang for making a mess in town. His friends arrive, and though they expected a bigger fight, they easily overwhelm the gang. Sakura is in shock. Why is Furin helping him? The thugs, terrified, recognize the newcomer as Hiragi. However, they still believe they can win because they outnumber them. Hiragi simply tells his team to finish the fight quickly. As the battle rages, Sakura's injured leg limits his movement. Hiragi saves him again and tells him to stand back if he's hurt. But Sakura refuses, snapping that Hiragi isn't his boss. The townspeople cheer for the Furin students, shocking Sakura. Tachibana explains that 2 years ago, public safety in the town was nearly non-existent, until the students of Furin stepped in. They even put up a notice board at the town entrance, warning that if anyone harmed the town, they would be the ones to purge them. Because of this, the townspeople began calling them Windbreaker, the town's shield. Despite their rough reputation, the Furin students are now beloved by the community. They still fight often, but now, they are needed. Sakura, overwhelmed with emotion, wonders if people might actually stand by him. He leaps into battle one last time, declaring that being a town shield sounds pretty cool. With one devastating punch, he knocks out the gang leader. And so, his journey truly begins. A low-grade pariah who only knows how to fight eventually becomes the town's hero. Sometime later, Sakura arrives at Teiya's restaurant, furious about having to carry old Grandma Sato. He fears she might get hurt getting off his back, but she just tells him to hurry up. Grandma Sato then shocks him with her dismount, leaving him furious since she had previously claimed that her hips hurt so much she couldn't walk. The old lady thanks him, but Sakura still doesn't know how to handle such kindness. Tachibana stops him from leaving and gives him some food, as today is his entrance ceremony. It's still early, though, so she once again assumes that he is all pumped up to go to school. He denies it, but she understands. After all, there are many interesting characters at Furin. Just then, a kid named Nu arrives, falling flat on his face. He wonders what Tachibana thinks about his new uniform, but Sakura points out that he still has the tags on his jacket. Nii quickly removes all the tags, and Tachibana informs Sakura that they will be in the same grade. Nii notices Sakura's strange hair and eyes, making Sakura think he has a problem with it. However, Nii is just surprised by his attitude, assuming that Sakura must have it rough, always being so stressed at his young age. He then tries to figure out why a nobody like Sakura came to their town. Sakura feels insulted, but Tachibana reassures him that Nii is like that with everyone. Nii eagerly points out that Furin High is no ordinary school. Its members stand up to protect the locals, they defend the weak and crush the wicked, making them heroes of justice. Everyone who comes to Furin admires them and wants to help protect the town. Nii is one of them, but he wonders why someone with no ties to Furin, like Sakura, would come to their town. Sakura makes his intentions very clear, he is there to take the top spot. Protecting the town is great and all, but there are many strong people there, and Sakura just wants to be the best among them. Nii suddenly becomes serious and warns him not to make claims he will never be able to fulfill. However, his reason for saying this is surprisingly silly, he fears that Sakura will go bald from the stress. Sakura, annoyed by his little comedy routine, demands a fight, but Nii declines. He has to leave, as he plans to do 3 rounds of town patrol before the entrance ceremony. Declaring that today marks the beginning of his journey as a hero of justice, he dashes off, only to trip on his way out. Tachibana finds the kid amusing, but Sakura can't believe a dork like that wants to be a hero. Tachibana is surprised by his judgment, but Sakura clarifies that people like Nii always chicken out in fights, which he finds pathetic. Tachibana argues that he's making assumptions and decides to teach him something. She shows him coffee beans and explains that the coffee fruit looks completely different before it's processed. The lesson? If you only look at things from one perspective, you'll never see their true nature. Sakura takes in the lesson but ultimately concludes that she must be saying Nii is a good fighter. Disappointed, Tachibana wonders if fighting is all he cares about. After he leaves, Sakura remains convinced that he's right. Suddenly, he is stopped and offered free bread. Confused, he asks why, and the baker explains that Furin kids always help out around town, so this is his way of giving back. The baker recognizes Sakura from the previous day's fight against a gang and tells him that everyone is talking about him. Sakura doesn't know how to handle the praise and tries to leave, but they insist that he take some sandwiches for lunch. As he walks through town, he realizes that many others feel the same way. He can't figure out why everyone is being so nice to him. But then it dawns on him, he had assumed they would treat him poorly. Just then, Sakura is shocked when a girl begs him for help in an alley. Meanwhile, Nii is getting beaten up for trying to stop a guy from harassing a girl. The bullies mock him for thinking he could protect the town and declare that he is the one who needs protecting. Despite this, Nii stands his ground, proclaiming that those who cause harm to the town will be purged by Furin. The bullies laugh, saying only people in superhero shows talk like that. Their leader grows annoyed and declares that it doesn't matter if Nii is a windbreaker, he's the one who will be purged. As he prepares to attack, Sakura arrives just in time. Nii is shocked and wonders why Sakura is saving him. However, Sakura doesn't even acknowledge him. The bullies laugh, assuming that Sakura is there to save his buddy, but Sakura is insulted by the idea. He clarifies that he just hates weaklings who think they are strong. The bullies decide to teach him a lesson. Nii fears for Sakura's safety, convinced that he can't take on all of them alone. But in just seconds, the bullies are all unconscious. Nii is stunned by how effortlessly Sakura handled them. He now fears him but still thanks him for his help. However, he assumes that Sakura must be disappointed that someone like him is attending Furin High. Sakura merely points out that he wasn't actually saving him. Sakura calls Nii a typical poser and warns him to understand his own limits. Nii then explains that he was constantly beaten up in middle school. One day, someone from Furin saved him, someone he would normally have feared. But in that moment, the guy seemed really cool. No wanted to be just like him, so he came to Furin to become just as strong. However, he now realizes that he is just pathetic. Sakura, reflecting on how he had misjudged Nii, acknowledges that while he is weak, he might not be completely lame. Nii is surprised by this statement. The girl he protected thanks him, and she also thanks Sakura, though he tries to brush it off and leave. However, Nii stops him, pulling out a small notebook. He bombards Sakura with questions about his height, weight, blood type, and hobbies. Annoyed, Sakura tells him to do whatever he wants. Nii takes this as an invitation to stick close to him, offering to show him around town. He admits that while he may not be helpful in a fight, he is the best guide when it comes to knowing the town and its people. He even declares that he will help guide Sakura to the top. Moments later, Nii urges Sakura to hurry, but he is too busy eating, claiming he gets really hungry after fighting. Impressed by how good the bread is, he gets caught up in the moment with Nii, but they quickly realize they need to get to school. Once they arrive, Sakura is excited to meet more strong opponents. At the class roster, Nii is thrilled to find that he and Sakura are in the same class. He recognizes many names but admits he doesn't know them personally, he just admires them. Sakura doesn't care, but Nii insists that classmates matter since they'll be spending a lot of time together. Suddenly, Nii spots one name in particular and loses all his energy. However, he quickly recovers and encourages Sakura to be friendly to everyone. He even suggests that he smile. Sakura thinks he's joking, but Nii warns that the students at Furin might not take kindly to an outsider. If they misunderstand his intentions, the entire school might turn against him. But Sakura doesn't care, he came to fight his way to the top. As he enters the classroom, Nii is horrified to see that everyone is staring at them. The class is filled with tough-looking students, but Sakura couldn't be more excited. One student recognizes him and approaches. Nii apologizes on his behalf, but the kid jokingly introduces himself as Leonardo DiCaprio. Sakura falls for it at first, while Nii is surprised by his humor. The kid, whose real name is So, claims that his eye patch seals away an ancient Chinese spirit. Sakura, realizing he's all talk, loses his temper. However, So suddenly gets serious and approaches him. The moment becomes tense, and Nii fears that outsiders are truly treated as anomalies here. Just then, another student flips a table. A terrifying figure enters, Kotaro, one of the most dangerous students in the school. Sakura gets an excited look, but Nii begs him not to fight. However, Sakura is thrilled, as he prefers battling mad dogs like Kotaro. Kotaro throws a powerful punch, but So quickly moves Nii out of the way. Sakura dodges effortlessly and compliments Kotaro, knowing this is exactly what he came for. Sakura's mistake was saying that he would be top dog in front of Kotaro. Sakura does his best to dodge all of Kotaro's attacks while it is explained that Kotaro has been instilling fear in high school students since he was in middle school. In recognition of his determination, Kotaro was the only person allowed to call himself Bin before officially starting. He has such extreme loyalty to the top dog that he has earned himself the nickname, the Top Dog's Fanatic. Another student begs So to stop the fight, as he is assured that the new student will lose his life to Kotaro. However, everyone is shocked when Sakura dodges another attack and lands a counter. Sakura points out that Kotaro is just a fan of the top dog, meaning he can't think for himself, he probably can't even make his own choices. Sakura explains that a guy like that has no chance of beating him. The bloodied Kotaro is furious, so the two prepare to continue fighting, but they are interrupted by an announcement. The person on the other end fumbles with the microphone but eventually welcomes all the students to Furin. Sakura is annoyed by the interruption and just wants to get back to the fight. However, the other students are completely focused on the announcement, and Sakura wonders who this guy is that was able to grab their attention. The guy introduces himself as Umiya, and Sakura realizes that he is Furin's top dog, the strongest guy in the school. Everyone waits eagerly to hear what he has to say, but Umiya simply states that he forgot. He then decides to tell everyone to enjoy their youth. They are in high school now, so they should try to make a lot of memories. He suggests that they all go to the beach and get some shaved ice. Nii can't believe what this tough guy is saying, but Kotaro thinks Umiya is trying to make fun of the top dog. Umiya acknowledges that, with so many students, there's bound to be some friction, but he assumes they aren't troublemakers who would start a fistfight on the first day. Kotaro tries to hide the fact that they are troublemakers fighting on the first day, so he wipes away the blood on his face. Umiya then gets serious for a moment and tells everyone to defend the town. They were given the name Furin, so they must protect the people and everything important to them. That is the school's one and only rule. All the students accept it, except Sakura, who is shocked that this guy isn't even in the room, yet everyone is eager to obey his orders. Sakura wonders just how strong a fighter Umiya is. So wants the two fighters to shake hands as a grand display of youthful understanding, but Sakura doesn't even think the fight is over yet. Nii wonders why Sakura is getting so red, but Sakura silences him. So reminds Kotaro that Umiya wouldn't like to hear that he was fighting a classmate and tells Sakura that showing respect to other students is important if he wants to be top dog. Surprisingly, Kotaro is willing to shake hands, and so begs Sakura to hurry up and do it. Sakura prepares to do so and reminds himself to just shake hands. He must have been through some serious hardship because he has to remind himself not to slap Kotaro's hand away or throw him to the ground. Sakura shakes his hand but thinks about how weird it feels to touch people outside of a fight. So is glad to see their youth burning bright, but their grip is so tight that they both wonder if the other is actually a gorilla. The other students celebrate, amazed that Sakura actually managed to land a hit on Kotaro. Sakura is surprised by how nice they are being, but he realizes that it has been this way the entire time since coming to Furin. Sakura falls silent in thought, but the other students just wonder if he got choked out. Sakura joins the fun, pointing out that he wouldn't get choked out so easily. However, in his mind, he reflects on how he had no idea people could be so friendly. Just then, the students are told to go outside. Moments later, Sakura is surprised to see that they have to paint over some graffiti. Sakura has no clue why they are doing this, but Nii takes pride in doing a good job, and so compliments his painting skills. A flashback to just before this painting moment shows what happened when they were told to go outside. The student who demanded them to do it explains that he will get in trouble if they take too long. It took them almost 8 minutes to get outside, so Hiragi remarks that even toddlers are faster than them. Sakura tells Nii that he saw Hiragi when he saved Tachibana, but Hiragi overhears him and gets furious. Sakura was never supposed to mention that Tachibana was there. Hiragi explains that he will be in big trouble if it gets out that Tachibana was in danger. Hiragi threatens that something bad will happen if Sakura doesn't listen, but the threat turns out to be that Hiragi will start coughing up blood. Hiragi takes some stomach medicine and explains that he doesn't know what brought Sakura to this school, but he chose one tough general to be under. Nii wonders what Hiragi was like, so explains that he's the type of weirdo who stresses himself into a stomachache and has to take medicine for it. Nii diligently takes notes on Hiragi, explaining that he is doing it because Hiragi is one of the school's 4 kings. Umiya sits at the top of Furin, but just below him are his generals, the 4 kings. Each one acts as a captain for all 3 years of a given class. Hiragi has the students split into groups with a 2nd or 3rd year student as their captain and explains that they will patrol the town. Hiragi is the captain of Sakura's group, which also includes Nii, So, and Kotaro. Kotaro and Sakura are in the same group because Umiya told Hiragi to keep a close eye on the troublemaking fighters. The guys are surprised that Umiya already knows about the fight, but Sakura points out that he was just defending himself. Hiragi has to pull them apart so they can continue patrolling. Sakura points out that all they are doing is walking around and wonders why they aren't beating up intruders. However, Hiragi explains that doing so would be offense, not defense. Simply walking around in their uniforms is enough to scare away smaller gangs. Sakura finds this boring, but Hiragi points out that only enjoying fights doesn't make him much fun either. Just then, Hiragi does his duty and helps an old man on a ladder. This is why the guys were painting earlier, they were helping the old man cover graffiti. Once they are done, they are given food as a thank you. Hiragi completely understands how Sakura only cares about fighting since all the other Bofurin guys used to feel the same way. However, they eventually realize that being needed by the people of the town is fun too. Sakura gives it some thought and takes a bite of his snack. They arrive at a tunnel where Sakura sees a symbol of a rather ugly-looking dog. No wishes he would be more careful with his words and explains that they are at the border between Bofurin and another gang's territory. Past these train tracks, they have their own rules, it's like a completely different country. It would be really dangerous to cause trouble there. The other team's symbol is a lion's head, and they believe that strength is everything. This is supposed to terrify outsiders, but that's exactly the kind of motto Sakura likes. Just then, the group sees that a Furin middle schooler is being chased by Lion's Head members. It becomes clear that the kid won't make it past the train tracks in time. Their teammate gets knocked out by a single kick, but Sakura notices how ruthless the others are, despite him being one of their own. Just then, the Lion's Head members become terrified when someone unexpected appears. Hogi is in disbelief that this particular person has shown up. He reveals that this man is the second in command of Lion's Head, named Togami. Togami casually greets Hiragi, who explains that the group was chasing one of their own. Sakura is annoyed by how laid-back Togami is but quickly realizes that he's the real deal, as he immediately figures out that Sakura and Kotaro were the ones who knocked out his team member. The knocked-out guy regains consciousness, furious that they invaded his turf and broke the rules. However, everyone is shocked when Togami smashes a bottle over his head. Togami doesn't care whether the fight happened on their turf or not, he only cares that the guy lost. He relentlessly punches him, explaining that losing means being weak, and Lion's Head has no room for the weak. He continues his brutal beating until Hiragi steps in to stop him. Hiragi argues that the guy is part of Togami's team, but Togami corrects him. He strips the guy of his Lion's Head jacket and declares that their group doesn't need the weak. Everyone is stunned by Togami's ruthlessness, but Sakura just finds him lame. He had thought Lion's Head believed in strength above all, but beating up the weak doesn't prove strength at all. Disappointed, he stands up to Togami, surprising everyone. The other Lion's Head members are convinced Togami will end his life for his words, but surprisingly, Togami is unfazed. Instead, he becomes curious about Sakura's unusual hair and gets irritated by how fast he talks. He then gets serious, stating that Sakura's way of speaking pisses him off. Togami makes his decision, he declares that he will beat Sakura to a pulp when the time is right. He memorizes Sakura's face before leaving with his group. En panics, realizing that Sakura and Kotaro may have just started a war. Hiragi, looking stressed, slams down some Gaisen, 10 pills, and En warns him not to exceed the recommended dosage. En wishes they hadn't provoked Togami, thinking he might have let them go after the kick. However, Hiragi knows better. He explains that Togami is the most territorial guy in Lion's Head, he wouldn't have let it slide anyway. What's done is done. Hiragi then shocks everyone by admitting that he should have acted first and apologizes. He tells a middle schooler named Sasaki to come along so they can report to Umiya. Sakura notices that Hiragi's stomach is really bothering him and wonders if he's that afraid of reporting to Umiya. Umiya had sounded pretty laid back during his announcement, so Sakura is curious about what kind of person he really is. When they arrive at the school's rooftop, everyone is amazed by how incredible it is. Hiragi approaches Umiya, and Sakura prepares to meet the so-called top dog of the school. However, all the students are shocked when Umiya seems more excited about his plants than anything else. He talks about wanting to have a barbecue in the summer, making Sakura question if this guy is really the leader. Hiragi tries to explain the serious situation with Lion's Head, but Umiya is more concerned about not having enough seedlings to plant. Hiragi, frustrated, tries again to explain the problem, but Umiya casually asks if he wants to plant some habaneros. The boys realize they're completely on different pages, but at least they now understand the cause of Hiragi's stomach pain. Sakura can't believe that Umiya is the top dog, but Kotaro demands that he show Umiya some respect. Umiya finally notices the other guys and eagerly shows them his plants. Hiragi is annoyed that Umiya never listens, while Sakura points out that all the plants look the same. This upsets Kotaro, and Umiya encourages him to take a closer look, claiming they're all different. Sakura then realizes that Umiya was just like this over the loudspeakers, kind of goofy, but somehow, his voice alone was enough to get everyone's attention. Even though Sakura still doesn't fully understand it, he wonders what it is about Umiya that draws people to him. Sasaki finally decides to speak up. He explains that he was chasing a shoplifter when he accidentally wandered into Lion's Head territory. They started chasing him, but he was saved by Sakura and Kotaro. Sasaki admires Ben a lot and admits that he got carried away, blaming himself for sparking a conflict with Lion's Head. He apologizes. Everyone is shocked when Umiya somehow already knows Sasaki's name. Instead of scolding him, Umiya actually thanks him. He explains that Sasaki was protecting the townspeople, so he has nothing to apologize for. Umiya then vows that they will take care of the rest. He casually laughs about how much Lion's Head must have hated being kicked off their feet. Hiragi, still in great stomach pain, apologizes as well, but Umiya reminds him that he can't take responsibility for everything. En agrees and points out that it was Sakura who pushed things too far. Umiya asks if he picked a fight, and Sakura explains that Lion's Head claims strength is everything, yet they beat up someone weaker. Everyone watches in amazement as Sakura bluntly calls them out. He braces himself for punishment but is shocked when Umiya actually agrees with him. He admits that Lion's Head has been acting pretty lame lately. He already heard about what Sakura did on Main Street, and now, combined with today's events, he can only thank him for protecting their family. The guys are stunned when Umiya calls Sakura a reliable new little bro. Kotaro, however, clearly dislikes it. Sakura finally understands why people are drawn to Umiya. He makes them feel safe. Uncomfortable with the situation, he pushes Umiya's hand away, wondering who made him his big bro. However, Umiya shrugs it off, saying that he sees everyone in town as family. Just then, Hiragi receives a call from a guy named Kaji. Kaji can barely speak and only manages to say, "Lion's Head," before the call cuts off. Suddenly, the leader of Lion's Head arrives, dragging Kaji behind him. He introduces himself as Choji and calls out Umiya, demanding a fight. En loses his mind, shocked that their leader has come in person. Meanwhile, Sakura, remembering that Togami was only the second in command, realizes that Choji must be even stronger. Just then, Sakura is startled by a terrifying aura. He sees Umiya preparing himself, but he has no idea what that feeling is. The guys step outside, but Umiya orders them to stay back. Sakura, eager to fight, protests, but Umiya, now deadly serious, simply states that he will not repeat himself. Sakura is shocked to realize that his legs won't move. Umiya has completely changed. Umiya tells Choji that he's holding one of his members, but Choji just smiles. The sheer contrast between Umiya's usual laid-back nature and his current intensity leaves everyone wondering just how crazy Choji must be. Choji states that he isn't just looking for a fight, he wants to take down Umiya personally. He claims that being the top dog of Lion's Head has become boring, while Umiya is always having fun. Choji doesn't think that's fair, so he wants to instill fear in him. En thinks he's insane, but Umiya seems to understand something. He tells Choji that he must have been through something rough, but Choji has no idea what he's talking about. Before the fight can start, another Lion's Head member arrives, and the Bin guys prepare for battle. Togami and Sakura continue to exchange insults, making it clear they have a personal grudge. Choji suggests one-on-one duels instead of an all-out brawl. They agree. Umiya will face Choji, Sakura will fight Togami, Kotaro will fight the blonde guy, and So will fight the quiet one. As the fight is set for the next day, En panics. If Umiya loses, Lion's Head will take over Bin. However, Kotaro refuses to believe that could happen. Despite the tension, Umiya and Hiragi haven't arrived yet. En explains that they had to calm down the students who were ready for blood. Sakura wonders why they chose to meet at a cafe, and So explains, it's a tradition for Bin. Sakura wonders if Lion's Head used to be different, and Hiragi explains that they believed in strength alone. They only cared about strong fighters. They always had a lot of hotheads, but they never would have chased a scholar. Both Urin and Lion's Head once had a big clash. It was a huge brawl, but Hiragi remembers it being oddly satisfying. Since Choji took over, bad rumors started spreading. He has heard that Choji has been picking fights everywhere. Choji and Togame used to be symbols of strength who cared deeply for their team, so Hiragi laments how something has changed them. Umiya suspects that someone named Tomiyama is responsible. Umiya explains that they will probably find out more tomorrow, but Sakura points out that they will be fighting tomorrow, there won't be much talking. However, Umiya explains that fights are conversations. Punches are a language that sometimes work better than words. That might only be true for guys like them, though. As night falls, Sasaki thanks everyone for saving him and hopes they win the fight. Everyone accepts his apology, but Sakura points out that he isn't fighting for him. Tachibana calls him a dope and tells him to say something cool like, "Leave it to me." This reminds Sakura of how that's exactly what Umiya said, so he says it too. The next day, the band guys arrive at the tunnel and enter Lion's Head territory. Sakura thinks about how this is the first time he has ever fought for someone else. He isn't sure why, but for some reason, he feels more unbeatable than ever. Choji welcomes them to his territory, and Umiya declares that they are ready. Excitedly, Choji leads them somewhere, so the band guys follow. On the way, Sakura notices that the entire place is filled with bars. Nii explains that it's known for getting pretty lively at night but is also very dangerous. Sakura now wonders what Nii is doing there and points out that he isn't in a one-on-one fight. Nii declares that he is there because he is a member of BAN. Even if he can't protect others like they can, he would at least like to be able to protect himself. Nii asks to be allowed to learn by watching. Sakura angrily tells him to just do what he wants, but So can tell that Sakura was flattered. Hiragi gets upset with them and wishes they would act at least a little nervous about the fight. Umiya reminds him to relax a bit and points out that the new students are very promising. Choji leads them further into the area, and Togame formally welcomes them to Orion, the Lion's Head secret lair. Nii consults his little information book and explains to the others that the Lion's Head lair is a movie theater named Orion that went out of business. Nowadays, they call it AIE, which means cage. They all enter the theater, where a bunch of Lion's Head members cheer as it is announced that the fighters are about to enter the arena. The crowd is very loud and unruly, so Nii is terrified. He now understands the nickname because this truly is a cage of wild beasts. Nii begins to wonder if they will make it back home, or even if they will make it back alive. Sakura notices this and reminds Nii that he's there to study. He instructs Nii to keep his eyes forward, and the refocused Nii does just that. Choji announces that it's time to begin, and Umiya points out that Choji has really turned this entire thing into a spectacle. Umiya tells his guys that while this has turned into a big event, the only fight that really matters is his one-on-one with Choji. Their wins or losses won't count, so they should feel at ease when they get on stage. Sakura refuses that statement and declares that, whether it counts or not, he does not intend to lose. The others agree, and Umiya is excited by how reliable they are. Choji wants his fight against Umiya to go first, but there's no way they are going to let the captain start the battle. A blonde guy wants to go first, pointing out that Kiaro has been shooting daggers at him with his eyes the entire time. Everyone is okay with this, so they head to the stage. Sakura reminds Kiaro that they still have a score to settle. However, if Kiaro loses to pathetic losers like these guys, then Sakura doesn't want to fight him ever again. Kiaro, as always, has no words and just heads to the stage. The blonde guy's name is Arima, so Nii looks him up in his little book. Arima is known for being a heavy hitter, having broken several ribs with just one punch. So tells him not to worry, though, since Kiaro is pretty much the same. Umiya shocks them when he says that they aren't even in the same league. On stage, Arima is annoyed by Kiaro's stare. He uses a dirty trick, pretending something bad happened to Umiya to distract Kiaro. Arima takes advantage of this and lands a punch, calling Kiaro an idiot for looking away during a fight. Sakura can tell there's nothing to worry about, though. Kiaro is just building up his rage, and then he absolutely destroys Arima. He calls Arima the idiot and reminds him to be more respectful when saying Umiya's name. Arima is completely unconscious, but Sakura is just disappointed by how weak he was. The Lion's Head guys can't believe he got knocked out so easily and wonder who this first-year ban guy is. Nii points out that Kiaro just needed one punch, and the Lion's Head guys grow concerned. Choji, on the other hand, is just amused by how tough Kiaro is. The ban guys look over and see just how focused Togame is. Choji now wants to fight Kiaro, so Togame has to tell him to wait for his turn. Nii is stunned by their reaction. Not only do they not care about the guy who lost, but they are also complimenting the opponent. Nii is more certain than ever that there is something definitely wrong with these two guys. Umiya points out that Kiaro has always been really tough, so it's no surprise that he wasn't affected by a punch to the face. Nii is still shocked by it, but Sakura isn't, because he has already fought Kiaro. The others are glad to see that this means Sakura finally accepts Kiaro's strength, but Sakura is too embarrassed to admit it. While they argue, Umiya looks over at the Lion's Head leaders. Choji wonders how Togame would beat Kiaro if he had to fight him. Umiya watches closely, as Togame is so focused that he doesn't even answer Choji. His seriousness gets Choji hyped for more fighting, so he instructs a couple of his guys to clear the stage. The guys, tired of dragging Arima, decide to just throw him off the stage onto the ground. They mock Arima for being so weak and kick his unconscious body, which makes Nii point out how horrible they are. Nii is then horrified when Sakura tells the two guys not to even talk around him. He never wants to hear them talk about being devotees of power ever again. It embarrasses him just hearing wimps like them speak. So joins in, pointing out that kids like them just won't understand until they are defeated. The guys get furious and wonder if they're looking for a fight. Their anger turns to terror, however, when Choji very seriously tells them to back away, since they are not the opponents. Sakura eagerly wants to fight next, but so declares that it's his turn to fight the quiet kid. So points out that his opponent looks really stressed out, so they should get some exercise. The kid's name is Kuma, and all the Lion's Head guys cheer him on. As So prepares to fight, he explains that he thought Sakura was stupid for wanting to go for the top spot. Sakura gets furious, but So explains that he was wrong. He thought Sakura's words were empty and meaningless, but he now knows that Sakura actually has a spine. So thinks that's pretty awesome, and he will do his best so he can keep up with Sakura. Imagination has just become reality, so his final lesson is that becoming an adult means being able to empathize. To do that, a person needs both imagination and experience. So is happy for Kuma, though, as at least he was able to learn something. The audience is completely silent. They can't believe that Kuma was completely toyed with. None of the Lion's Head guys know who So is, so they realize he must be a first year. This is extremely concerning, making them realize that both Yorin and So are really bad news. So is humble about his victory, but N wants to know if he used Kung Fu. He is shocked to learn that So doesn't even know what his fighting technique is, as his master simply made it up. Nii diligently takes notes while So apologizes for his behavior against Kuma. So explains that Sakura motivated him, but Sakura doesn't care, he just wants to make sure So goes all out when they fight each other. Nii can't believe how much Sakura wants to fight everyone, and So says he wouldn't want to fight Sakura since he looks like a nuisance. The two of them argue, but Yumam is glad to see how lively everyone is. So keeps antagonizing Sakura, but Umiya can tell they will make a great team. Just then, they see Kuma dragging Era's body. Kuma is still traumatized by what just happened, and he tells Era that it's all over. Of course, Troji now wants to fight Eyepatch, and Sakura declares that it's finally his turn. Unfortunately for him, Seiko points at Hiraiji instead. Hiraiji apologizes to Sakura, saying they must go first. Sakura is furious, pointing out that the other two first years just went, so it doesn't make sense to save him for later. Hiraiji explains that Sakura's opponent is Togami, but it doesn't look like he's ready to step up yet. Togami is their second in command, and Hiraiji argues that it would make more sense if he fought him instead. Sakura gets upset, assuming Hiraiji doesn't think he can win. However, he is shocked when Hiraiji explains that he trusts Sakura. Sakura doesn't know how to handle this and just declares that he doesn't need Hiraiji's trust, he will win either way. Hiraiji doesn't talk much about himself, but he and Seiko seem to know each other. Choji cheers Seiko on, but Togami is surprised that Seiko insisted on a one-on-one fight. It's not like him, so Togami wonders if something happened between him and Hiraiji. Togami can never tell what Seiko is thinking, but Choji is more excited than anything. It's not every day that they get to see one of Band's four kings go up against Seiko. Hiraiji tries to catch up with Seiko, but Seiko remains silent. Hiraiji then just apologizes, stating that he will be winning this fight. Choji demands they stop talking and start fighting, so they do. Seiko displays insane speed, surprising everyone. He declares that he's tired of Hiraiji looking down on him, his old self is long gone, and he plans to make Hiraiji understand that. The battle intensifies, and Hiraiji barely manages to avoid a devastating kick. Choji cheers Seiko on while Nii is terrified by how much pressure Seiko is putting on Hiraiji. Togami is impressed by Seiko's performance, but Choji insists it's to be expected, Seiko is one of their top 5. Togami explains that Seiko has been in more fights than anyone and joined Lion's Head seemingly out of desperation. Choji is more surprised by how much Seiko is talking. Usually, he only says, yes or no, and if they're lucky, maybe one more word. His sudden talkativeness must mean he's very angry at Hiraiji. Seiko dodges Hiraiji's attacks while pointing out all his weaknesses. He is disappointed that Hiraiji hasn't improved at all. Hiraiji, in turn, points out that Seiko has become much more talkative. He used to be so quiet that Hiraiji never had to tell him not to talk during a fight, or else he would bite his tongue. Just mentioning their past makes Seiko furious, and he lunges for another attack. Hiraiji is shocked at Seiko's increased speed and gets knocked back. Seiko is disappointed, realizing that Hiraiji has not only failed to improve, he's gotten weaker. He blames it on Hiraiji surrounding himself with a group of pushovers. Sakura becomes furious, not at Seiko, but at Hiraiji. Seiko is surprised to hear him speak to Hiraiji that way. Sakura argues that they're being mocked because of him, and the only weak part about Hiraiji should be his stomach. Nii has to hold Sakura back from attacking Hiraiji, while So notes that Sakura is starting to care about his friends. Sakura insists he's just angry. Umiya calms everyone down and tells Seiko that Hiraiji is one of their 4 kings, the leader of the team named after Taimanin. He confidently states that Taimanin has another name. Bako has no clue what point he's trying to make. Just then, everyone is shocked as Hiraiji stands back up and declares that he hasn't been kicked like that in a while. Seiko barely dodges Hiraiji's incredibly powerful punch. Hiraiji acknowledges that Seiko is a totally different person now. Umiya then reveals that Taimanin is also known as Bishamontan, the god of war who controls the battlefield. Hiraiji is annoyed at being yelled at by a first year but finds some amusement in the fight. He takes some medicine, preparing himself. It's starting to get fun. A flashback shows some bullies upset with Seiko for being cocky. Seiko denies it, but they beat him up anyway. Fortunately, a young Hiraiji appears and asks them what they're doing. Back in the present, the fight continues. The Lion's Head members watch in amazement. It's rare to witness such a one-on-one fight. The Yorin first years are impressed, not realizing Hiraiji was this strong. Sakura wishes Hiraiji had shown his strength from the start, but so believes he was inspired by Sakura's words. Choji is surprised by Seiko's fighting ability, but Togami sees that Hiraiji has the upper hand. This becomes clearer as the fight progresses. Bako refuses to believe that Hiraiji's current self is stronger than him. It doesn't make sense. Hiraiji lives a cushy life and hangs out with his friendly crowd. Another flashback shows Hiraiji defeating Seiko's bullies. Seiko couldn't understand why Hiraiji helped him, but Hiraiji simply said, "Bullying is bad." He told Seiko that bullies would keep picking on him if he just stayed quiet, so he needed to start fighting back, even a little. Seiko was completely hopeless and begged Hiraiji to teach him how to fight. As Hiraiji helped him, Seiko began to admire his strength. Hiraiji never sought to create a herd of his own, but people naturally gravitated toward him. Seiko admired him and was excited when Hiraiji graduated and was about to enter high school. Seiko was sure Hiraiji would take the top spot and vowed to help him in any way he could. However, Seiko was horrified when Hiraiji told him it would be best if he didn't follow him anymore. Hiraiji explained that he had made a different decision. A guy named Umiya couldn't take the top spot himself, so things didn't turn out the way Seiko expected. Hiraiji told Seiko to find a new goal of his own, which devastated Seiko. In his frustration, he took his anger out by fighting. This was when Togami and Toi found him and were impressed by his strength. Seiko only wanted to know if they had strong members, and they assured him they did. Togami explained that Lion's Head's philosophy was devotion to power. The stronger you are, the higher you will rise. However, Seiko didn't care about Togami's speech. He declared that all he cared about was fighting strong opponents. Determined to grow stronger, he aimed to defeat Hiraiji and make him regret his decision. Back in the present, Seiko refuses to lose. Unlike Hiraiji, he never got close to anyone. Instead, he dedicated himself to becoming stronger. Seiko lunges for an attack, but Hiraiji predicts his movements, making Seiko even more furious. He accuses Hiraiji of submitting to someone else and declares he could never lose to a person like that. Hiraiji stops Seiko's punch and apologizes for not meeting his expectations. Then, he delivers a powerful punch that knocks Seiko out. As Seiko falls unconscious, he realizes that Hiraiji never needed to apologize. What truly hurt was when Hiraiji told him to stop following him. Seiko didn't mind that Hiraiji chose to support someone else, he just wanted Hiraiji to tell him to keep following him. Hiraiji's final punch ends the battle, leaving the Lion's Head members in shock at Seiko's defeat. Among Ban's 4 kings, the Ban group is proud of their fighter. Choji expresses his desire to fight Hiraiji next, but Togami simply orders someone to carry Seiko off the stage. When the Lion's Head members hesitate, Hiraiji lifts Seiko himself. Togami comments that Hiraiji didn't need to handle Seiko so gently, but Hiraiji stops him from touching Seiko. He insists they should wait until after their one-on-one fight. His anger is evident as he forcefully grabs Togami, stating that their usual way of handling things won't make them stronger. Togami is confused, so Hiraiji clarifies that he's just talking to himself. However, Togami remarks that Hiraiji is saying quite a lot for someone who's supposedly not addressing anyone. The first-year students praise Hiraiji for his impressive performance, and Andia specifically compliments his roundhouse kick. Hiraiji expects Umiya to ask about his past but is relieved when Umiya says he'll only listen when Hiraiji is ready to tell his story. Meanwhile, Togami zones out as he recalls his past, but Choji snaps him back to reality, reminding him that it's his turn to fight. Togami tells Sakura to get ready, and the crowd cheers wildly. The excitement is even greater than before. Umiya wishes Sakura luck, reminding him that a fight is like a conversation, though Sakura isn't sure what that means. Regardless, he is determined to win. As the match begins, Sakura throws a punch, but Togami immediately tackles him. Togami nearly lands a devastating punch, but Sakura manages to escape. The crowd erupts in cheers, and Sakura tries to regain his composure. Hiraiji notes that Sakura has proven himself as a great fighter in recent days. However, Togami is the one who keeps the Wild Lion's head members in check. He can only do so because of his overwhelming strength. Sakura points out that Togami is moving fast for someone who claimed he wanted to take his time. However, Togami insists that this is not even a fast pace for him. He decides to maintain this speed until Sakura can keep up, and Sakura accepts the challenge. As they continue to fight, everyone marvels at Togami's incredible speed. No wonders if Sakura can manage to dodge his attacks. Umiya explains that Togami and Choji have always stood out among the Lion's Head members, making Togami significantly stronger than the others. Sakura, more than anyone, must be feeling that difference right now. Suddenly, Ina celebrates as Sakura successfully lands a hit. Togami is impressed that Sakura is already catching up. However, Sakura is still not fast enough, as Togami drops him and nearly crushes his skull. Togami remembers how Sakura once called him lame in a tunnel and finds it irritating. Just then, Sakura sweeps Togami's leg, but Togami retaliates by slamming his face into the ground. The crowd roars in excitement, but Ina is horrified. Togami is disappointed that Sakura is already unconscious. He mocks him for being lamer than he is. Sakura tries to act tough, but Togami tells him that only people with power can afford to be cocky. He assumes that Sakura acts strong because he belongs to a powerful group, but when he is alone, he has no voice. Furious, Sakura breaks free and continues his attacks. He agrees that freedom is reserved for the powerful. Without power, a person cannot remain true to themselves. As he makes this declaration, the crowd is stunned by his sudden transformation. Ina always believed Sakura was strong but never expected this level of intensity. Sakura reminds Togami that if he loses, it would mean everything he stands for. Lion's Head's devotion to strength amounts to nothing. His relentless barrage ends with a devastating kick to Togami's face, shocking everyone. Togami warns him not to get cocky and retaliates with a powerful kick that sends Sakura flying. He declares that Lion's Head takes their devotion to power seriously, and all of its members constantly strive for improvement. He then stomps on Sakura's head, reinforcing his dominance. The crowd believes Sakura is finished, but Sakura remains conscious. He accuses Lion's Head of being nothing more than a gang of bullies rather than true devotees of power. He points out that they even attack middle school kids. Togami, tired of hearing this, moves to stomp on him again, but this time, he stops. The crowd falls silent. Togami hesitates, demanding an explanation from his subordinates, Kuma and Era. They admit to harassing a middle school kid but try to shift the blame. Infuriated, Togami beats them mercilessly before stripping them of their Lion's Head jackets. Choji tells Togami to hurry up and resume his fight. Togami apologizes to Sakura for the delay, declaring that it's time to continue. A flashback takes us to a festival where a younger Togami fought a group of Lion's Head members single-handedly. Just as he was about to face more opponents, Choji appeared, impressed by Togami's strength. Choji had just joined Lion's Head himself and invited Togami to join as well. Over time, the two became close friends. One day, Choji asked Togami if he understood what devotion to power meant. He explained that it was an oath to remain true to oneself, never yielding to others. Power, he said, was the key to freedom. Rumors spread about how strong Choji and Togami were together. They often ventured into enemy territory alone and emerged victorious. The other members couldn't believe they were fighting just to get revenge for one of their own. Choji dismissed their doubts, stating that he was just trying to become the freest guy ever. At the time, Togami thought their group would be even better if Choji became the leader. However, he later realized he was wrong. After Choji assumed leadership, he found no joy in it. To fix this, he declared that everyone in Lion's Head needed to be as strong as he was. One day, after a member was beaten up by the Zinc Boys, Togami expected Choji to seek revenge. Instead, Choji attacked their injured member, claiming he would never become strong enough to be free. Togami was horrified but was reminded that Choji, as the strongest and freest, made the decisions. Choji then told Togami that if he didn't understand, he should leave. Togami was left in shock, questioning everything he once believed. Togami was listening, but he agreed to do as Choji said. He agreed to tell everyone about Choji's views and even agreed to carry out the punishment for those who opposed them. However, Togami had one request, for Choji to simply keep smiling around everyone. On that day, Togami decided he would be covered in mud because Choji was the sun, and the sun must be loved by everyone, even if it meant blinding people with power to become free. Togami vowed to keep this version of Lion's Head going until the day the sun shone again. Back to the present. The fight continued, but everyone was startled when Sakura suddenly took a commanding lead. Sakura became annoyed and refused to believe Togami was serious. He pointed out that Togami didn't even seem to want to land a punch or dodge his kicks. Sakura wondered what he was trying to do, and even Togami himself could only wonder the same. Sakura dodged some of Togami's attacks, but he sensed that something was wrong. There was confusion in Togami's fists. Sakura had assumed they picked this fight because they knew everything, but Togami clearly didn't. Wanting answers, Sakura asked Togami why he punched those guys. He thought that in Lion's Head, anyone with power could do whatever they wanted. However, he was shocked when Togami explained that Lion's Head was not a place for scumbags. Togami had been trying to rid their group of all the scumbags. When they encountered Furin at the bridge, fighting him had been Choji's obsession, and Togami thought it might trigger some kind of change. However, this fight had only led to them all getting wrecked. There was no turning back for Togami, though, because on that rainy day, he had chosen to commit to the wrong path. Sakura once again questioned his intentions, but he was stunned when Togami simply said he wanted to go to the mountains. Sakura didn't care about any of that and pointed out that Togami was one of the very scumbags he wanted to get rid of. He did the same thing scumbags did, and Sakura thought he was pretty lame for it. Sakura wanted to make him realize that himself, so he decided to win the fight. If he won, Sakura was sure Togami would stop being lame and become an awesome guy, someone he would actually want to fight. Togami thought Sakura was being selfish, but Sakura didn't care. This was simply what it meant to push one's will through in a fight. As Sakura attacked, he declared that no matter how strong his opponent was, even if his opponent had saved his life, he would never avert his eyes or distort who he was. This triggered a memory in Togami. He remembered how shocked he had been when Choji told him that if he didn't like his vision, he could leave Lion's Head. But instead of leaving, Togami had decided to do all the dirty work so that Choji could keep smiling with everyone. Sakura's attack landed, and so did his words. Togami laughed and complimented Sakura on being really good at pushing people's buttons. Togami punched Sakura, and Sakura was glad. He could tell that Togami was finally getting serious. Sakura gave him the nickname, Scraggle, but Togami removed his sandals in preparation for a real fight and demanded to be called by his real name. Finally ready, Togami called Sakura by his name and told him it was time to fight. The intense battle. The two fighters went all out, landing several attacks on each other. The crowd fell silent, watching the absolute brawl unfold. Neither of them held back, but what shocked the crowd even more was that both Sakurama and Togami were laughing despite the brutal fight. They exchanged blow after blow, destroying each other with a barrage of attacks, yet they were clearly enjoying themselves. So watched in amazement, realizing he never knew Sakura was this good of a fighter. Nii didn't understand why, but he teared up. The fight had somehow touched his heart. Even Hiragi and Umiya were impressed with Sakura. Choji, on the other hand, watched in complete silence. As Sakura fought, he was confused. He was supposed to be fighting a guy who did really lame things, so why did fighting Togami feel so comfortable? He was also surprised because no one had ever called him by his name during a fight before. Meanwhile, Togami was also thinking. He noticed that Sakura was having an irritating amount of fun. More than that, he could tell that Sakura's movements were improving with every passing moment. Togami couldn't hide his own enjoyment anymore. He told Sakura to bring it on, and they both charged at each other. The fight reached its climax when they both kicked each other in the face at the exact same time and collapsed to the ground. Nii was horrified, but the two fighters just laughed. Togami never knew fights could be this enjoyable, and Sakura felt the same way. They had been fighting for long enough, so they decided to end it. Charging at each other once again, they prepared their most powerful punches. Just then, Togami thought about Sakura's words, that he would never distort who he was for anyone. That made Togami realize he should have fought back against Choji's orders that day. But he hadn't. Instead, he had averted his eyes. Togami couldn't push through who he was, but he saw the potential in Sakura. He was sure that Sakura would become even stronger because he wasn't afraid to push his will through, no matter who his opponent was. Togami just hoped that Sakura never changed. In that moment, Togami decided not to go through with his punch. In his mind, he thanked Sakura for helping him finally understand. Sakura's punch landed. Togami declared that he could no longer move and gave up. The audience was stunned. No one had ever heard those words from Togami, the guy who charged and laughing, even in dangerous situations. Even the band guys were at a loss for words. Sakura, however, was furious. He couldn't understand why Togami had just given up. He wasn't happy with how the fight had ended and demanded to know why Togami had chosen to lose on purpose. Before Togami could answer, an excited Choji interrupted, expressing his desire to fight Sakura one day. However, for now, he was ready to fight Umiya. Togami urged Choji to call off the fight because he had come to realize he was wrong. But Choji was too excited to listen. Togami insisted even more, but then. Everyone was shocked when Choji suddenly attacked Togami, telling him to just shut up already. Choji declared that since Togami had lost, he had to stay quiet. This caused Sakura to lose his cool completely. He charged in to punch Choji, but Umiya appeared out of nowhere to stop him. Umiya explained that it was time to swap spots. However, Sakura was too angry to back down. Umiya pointed out that Sakura defending Togami proved that their fight had been meaningful. Togami was then shocked when Umiya asked if he could leave the rest to him. Togami agreed. Sakura, still fuming, told Umiya that if he lost to Choji, he would beat him up. As he walked off stage, Sakura couldn't understand why Togami getting attacked made him so angry. He thought about how glad Umiya had been about their fight being a proper conversation. But Sakura still didn't understand, he hadn't heard any words from Togami's fists. Nii caught Sakura as he almost fell, and the others welcomed him back. Hiragi knew Sakura didn't like how the fight had ended, but he explained that it was Togami's way of setting things right. He then complimented Sakura on doing really well, but Sakura didn't know how to take a compliment. Meanwhile, Choji was thrilled to finally fight Umiya. But before they started, Umiya asked if Choji felt anything while watching Togami and Sakura fight. Choji had no idea what he was talking about. Umiya sighed. It was a shame. Choji didn't know why it was a shame, nor did he care. All he knew was that if he won, Furin would be his. And so, the fight continued. Choji has had enough of Umami's talking, as it doesn't make any sense to him. Without hesitation, he goes in for another attack. However, Umami shows just how terrifying he can be with a punch that forces Choji to back away. Umami is disappointed that Choji doesn't understand what he's trying to say, and Choji is shocked when his nose starts bleeding, even though Umami's punch never landed. Umami declares that, against someone who doesn't understand what he's saying, he is 100% sure he won't lose. The intense fight continues, and the Bothan boys can't believe how crazy Choji is. Umami is fighting evenly against him, but Choji manages to get behind him and land a kick. However, Choji is shocked when Umami isn't affected. He must dodge quickly as Umami nearly destroys him. Choji is confused because he is sure he's landing his attacks. Umami explains that Choji's punches have no weight behind them. Everyone is confused, so Umami elaborates, it's because Choji isn't fighting for anything. Choji doesn't care and simply determines that he just has to keep attacking until Umami collapses. He begins his attack again and finally manages to land an uppercut. Yet, once again, Umami is unaffected and states that Choji's attacks just won't work on him. He slams Choji to the ground. Choji barely manages to get up but declares that he will be free no matter what. He tells Umami to get out of his way and starts attacking again. Umami wonders what this freedom Choji keeps talking about means, so Choji explains that it's when he's having fun. Umami asks for an example of fun, to which Choji responds that fun is fighting someone tough, like Umami. Umami points out that Choji doesn't look like he's having fun and concludes that Choji doesn't know anything about himself. That's why he must feel empty. Suddenly, Umami pies Choji, which infuriates him. Choji begins attacking again, but Umami keeps going and mocks Lion's Head for having a leader like Choji. He reminds Choji that he's at the top now, so he shouldn't let his comrades see him in this state. Umami then lands a powerful punch, shocking everyone. Na is glad he joined Bothan and even happier to have Umami as their top guy. Choji thinks about how everyone sees him and realizes that their happy faces were only from the past. He becomes confused and repeatedly tells Umami to stop. His panic ends with a loud scream, and Choji suddenly decides that he doesn't want anything anymore. Choji wonders how long it's been since his world turned so dark and gray. He has felt empty for the longest time, as if his heart has become a desert. He knows he's lacking something, but he no longer cares. Back to reality, Choji completely loses his mind, shocking tone. He unleashes a barrage of attacks, bringing Umami to the ground. He attacks without mercy, and onlookers wonder why Umami isn't fighting back. Sakura becomes furious and reminds Umami of how he claimed he was 100% sure he wouldn't lose. Na fears that Umami might lose his life, but Chiaro tells them to shut up and watch. Eventually, Choji stops punching, and, surprisingly, Umami apologizes. He didn't mean to push Choji over the edge, but he realizes now that Choji was at his wit's end. Choji tells him to shut up and starts punching again, but Umami explains that his reckless behavior will only keep him stuck in the same place. Choji, completely out of control, bites Umami's neck. Umami remains calm and tells Choji that the answer is still in his heart. Choji backs off in shock as Umami reminds him of the altercation between Lion's Head and Bin. It was all just a misunderstanding. The battle ends, and Choji tells Umami that it was the most fun he's ever had. Umami recalls how Choji's fists felt heavier back then and wonders what he had around him. When Umami approaches, Choji tells him to stay back and trembles in fear as Umami reaches out. However, Choji is shocked when Umami simply holds him and tells him to think back to what he saw in the past. Umami is certain that whatever that was is what Choji truly needs, and what's needed at the top. Togami watches in awe and quietly thanks Umami for what he's doing. Umami demands that Choji remember and even uses a headbutt to encourage him. Choji sees a vision of the past and wonders why everyone looked like they were having so much fun. He feels jealous of them and asks to join. In a flashback, Choji is seen petting a cat while everyone points out how laid back he is. They tell him they're headed to a fight, reminding him that if he's aiming for the top spot, he needs to be more serious. However, Choji can't even remember who they were going to fight, and everyone just laughs. He's genuinely happy, enjoying time with them, and hopes it never ends. But suddenly, everyone disappears, leaving Choji alone. He sees Togami doing something nearby, but before he can call out, Choji falls through the ground. Realizing it's a dream, he thinks about how long it's been since he had one. When he wakes up, Togami is staring at him with a sad expression. The entire arena is silent. Choji realizes that he lost against Umami. However, he smiles and tells Togami that he had a dream about the past. Everyone was smiling and having fun. This makes him realize that when others are happy, he's happy too. Because of this, he wants Togami to smile. Togami is shocked. He apologizes for leaving Choji alone and for not knowing what was tormenting him. He feels terrible for taking everyone away from Choji, but he just didn't want to see him hurt or hated. Togami has always wanted Choji to be loved and wanted to protect the joyful moments they had together. That's why, on that day, even though he knew it was a mistake, Togami averted his eyes. However, fighting Sakura made him realize that he needed to confront Choji and push his will through. He apologizes for not talking to him and searching for the answer together. He says sorry for leaving him alone and taking away what he truly needed. Togami apologizes over and over again, but Choji has something to say. He once believed that becoming the leader would bring him more fun than anyone else. He imagined leading everyone to a treasure box at the top of a hill, expecting something amazing inside. But when he finally reached it, the box was empty. He was surrounded by darkness and felt nothing. He became scared and empty. No matter what he did, he couldn't feel anything. He felt hollow, like he had to do something, anything. Eventually, he couldn't see anything at all and started blaming everyone else. He convinced himself that he couldn't have fun because the team was weak. If everyone became strong, then he would finally enjoy himself. But now, Choji realizes that Togami didn't take anything away from him, he did it to himself. He had fun just being with everyone, but he never realized it at the time. He admits that he broke everything down on his own. He credits Togami for holding everyone together while he was lost. However, Togami doesn't want to see Choji like this. Choji now understands that he was the only one who couldn't see things clearly. Umami told him not to make others unhappy, but now Choji realizes that Togami has been looking unhappy for a long time. Choji takes the blame and is amazed at how Togami kept everything together despite it. Overwhelmed with emotion, Choji sobs. Eventually, he gets up and thanks Togami one last time. He's glad that he can at least make things right at the very end. Then, to everyone's shock, he concedes defeat, raising his jacket to Umami. Some members try to stop him, but it's too late. Choji announces that he will be dropping out of Lion's Head. Lion's Head now belongs to Umami. All he asks is for Umami to take care of it. Everyone takes a moment to catch their breath. Togami prepares to do the same, but Umiya surprisingly tells Choi, heck no. Umiya explains that they were the ones who put their teams on the line, and he has no intention of doing anything like that. He doesn't care about expanding his team or rankings, whether higher or lower, because it's too much of a hassle. Choji points out that Umiya defeated him, but Umiya simply responds that they'll just have to be friends from now on. He declares that the fight they all just had was nothing more than a get-together. Casually, Umiya thanks everyone for coming, leaving them all in shock. Togami is in awe, while Choji laughs and tells Umiya that he's a really funny guy. Umiya calls at the end of the get-together and tells everyone to go home. Then, to everyone's surprise, he asks if there's a good restaurant nearby. He shocks them again by announcing, "It's time for the after-party." Moments later, Umiya celebrates while Sakura wonders what just happened. Umami and Hiraji enjoy their food, but Nii can't believe they're eating so casually after everything that happened. He finds comfort in So agreeing with him, only to realize that So is actually just on a diet. Sakura is in complete disbelief, unable to understand how Umiya can casually eat with someone he just fought against. He starts to question whether it was even really a fight, as Umiya didn't treat it like one. Sakura reflects on how he could never do what Umiya just did. Meanwhile, Umiya notices that Togami isn't eating. Togami pauses, then apologizes, taking full responsibility for everything: the downfall of Lion's Head, the raid at Furin, and the fight today. Choi also shares the blame and apologizes to everyone. Just then, Sakura is shocked when Umiya says the decision is Togami's to make. Togami nods, accepting whatever punishment is given. Sakura thinks about all the wrong Togami has done, as well as their fight. Finally, he decides on a punishment: Togami must become a really cool guy, he's not allowed to do anything lame anymore. Togami accepts, and Umiya announces that everything is officially settled. As he enjoys his meal, Choji points out that Umiya is at the top, yet he always seems to be having fun. Umiya's answer is simple: he just really likes eating food. Everyone is shocked, but Choji excitedly says that he loves eating too. The two share their favorite foods, and Umiya explains that the best part of eating is gathering people together to share food, talk, and laugh. It's a great way to forget about the bad things in life. More than anything, he looks forward to those times. Most importantly, his love for food has nothing to do with him being at the top. Choi finally understands, realizing he never saw what was right in front of him. Umiya, in all his wisdom, explains, people don't thank oxygen when they breathe. Choji had fun moments right in front of him, but they were so common he never noticed them. Choji then wonders why Umiya reached the top despite knowing all this. Again, Umiya's answer is simple: he just wants to keep having fun eating with everyone. As long as people are smiling, he can enjoy his meals. To make that happen, he realized he needed to be in a position of power in this town. So, he reached the top of Furin, not because he aimed for it, but because it was the best way to do what he wanted. Choji is amazed that Umiya was able to reach the top, but Umiya humbly says he only got there because of the people who helped him. Sakura is shocked when Umiya says, "You can't reach the top on your own." He explains that he was only able to rise to the top because others carried him there, people who believed in what he wanted to do. By the time he reached the top, his dreams weren't just his own anymore, they belonged to everyone. That's why he vowed never to lose. Sakura is in awe, and the others admire Umiya as well. Choji realizes that this is why Umiya's fists felt so light, he carries so much on his shoulders. He finally understands that he never stood a chance against him. As the party ends, Umiya invites the Lion's Head members to visit Bin. He assures them there's great food and even gives Choji some bread he happened to have. Togami is visibly grateful to Sakura, and the two groups part ways. Choji tells Togami that everything he's done can't be fixed with just an apology. He doesn't know what to do next, but he knows he needs his friends. Togami feels the same and acknowledges that he must face the consequences. This time, though, it will be different, they will look for the answer together. As they share the bread Umiya gave them, Choji laughs, saying that even though it's cold, it's still pretty good. He wonders how good it would be fresh out of the oven, but Togami suddenly starts crying. Choji doesn't notice and assumes it's raining again. Togami goes along with it, commenting on how strange it is for it to rain when the sun is already shining. Back in Furin, Sasaki gets excited when he sees the others return. Umiya is surprised that Sasaki was waiting for them and reminds him that he was supposed to leave things to them. Umiya announces that everything is over, and Sasaki breaks down in gratitude. Tachibana can't believe how quickly they all got patched up. Umiya explains that they're friends with Lion's Head now. Tachibana then points out that So doesn't look as exhausted as the others. So explains that he just doesn't sweat much. However, he notices that Sakura looks pretty beaten up and welcomes him back home. Sakura remembers how both Tachibana and Umiya told him that no one reaches the top alone. He stays quiet for a while, lost in thought, prompting the others to ask if something is wrong. He brushes them off, saying he's just going home. Umiya stops him, reminding him that this is a day to celebrate. Sakura insists that there's nothing to celebrate, but Umiya reminds him that he was able to have a conversation during his fight. Declaring it Dialogue Anniversary Day, Umiya insists it should be celebrated, but Sakura has no idea what that even means. Later, as Sakura reflects on everything Umiya said, he realizes that everything he once believed was wrong. He thought that the strongest person would naturally end up at the top, but everything that's happened recently proves otherwise. Umiya later asks how Sakura's conversation went. Sakura claims he didn't have one. He didn't hear any voices from his fists. Umiya laughs, explaining that he never meant it literally. Fists aren't telepathic, they are simply a way to convey feelings. Fists existed before language, and they communicate in a primitive way. Sakura is still confused, so Umiya clarifies, fists only convey one thing, whether or not you like someone. Sakura is so shocked that he spits out his coffee. Kiaro has to calm him down. Umiya explains that Sakura did have a conversation with Togami. He must have gotten closer to him, which is why he defended him against Choji. Sakura still doesn't understand why that's something to celebrate, so Umiya simply says, because it makes me happy. Everyone begins to joke around, but Sakura is frustrated. He can't understand how Umiya and the others let things go so easily. He admits that he came here to take the top spot, but now he realizes he'll never be able to do it alone. Just then, En interrupts, reminding Sakura that he once told him he wasn't lame. That meant a lot to En. Umiya reassures Sakura that he's capable of connecting with others. If he wants, he can still reach the top. Sakura is stunned, but the others agree. Kiaro challenges him to a fight, and the guys get carried away until Tachibana calms them down. Later, at school, everyone is curious about their fight with Lion's Head. Sug, a strange but strong student, approaches them and asks Sakura one question: what is your virtue? His virtue lies in his fists, and Sakura is reminded of what Umiya said about how fighting is a conversation. Sakura thinks fighting might be fun, so tensions rise, but they are interrupted when another student arrives. Sakura recognizes this guy from class and is shocked to see him holding hands with a girl. His name is Kiru, and he ignores Sue's request to sit together. Ne can't contain his excitement as he points out that 4 of the 5 powerhouses in their class are in the same place. He compliments Sakura for being one of the top 5, but Sakura just wants to know how strong Kiru is. Ne explains that Kiru went to a rich kid school, and rumors say that when he was a first year, he defeated 33rd years from an infamous delinquent school all by himself. Sakura wants to know more, and Ne can't believe how eager his friend is for information today. Sakura's face is getting really red, but he just tells Ne to hurry up and tell him more. Ne goes on to say that Kiru is popular with the ladies, and Sue can tell that Sakura is just desperate not to think about Kiru's relationship. Sue takes it upon himself to invite Kiru to their table and explains that Sakura wants to know more about him. Sakura denies it, and Kiru remembers him from class. He is intrigued by the fight Sakura just had. Suki can tell that Kiru wants to learn more about Sakura too. Unfortunately, Kiru is busy, so he suggests they chat again at school. Sakura feels embarrassed, and Sue makes it worse by insisting that Kiru reveal what his virtue is. Kiru's friend looks uncomfortable, but Kiru assures her that everything is okay. However, he can tell that Sue is scaring her, so he becomes very serious and asks Sue to stop. Tensions rise, and Kyo wonders if Sue knows how others perceive him. Kiru explains that Sue has a large frame and looks powerful, so some people might find him intimidating, especially when he's shouting. Kiru tells him that if he doesn't change, he will never be popular with the ladies. Sue recognizes the error of his ways and apologizes to the girl. Kiru takes her somewhere quieter, and Sue explains that he apologized because carelessly scaring others goes against his virtue. Just then, they hear shouting, and they see Kiru being confronted by a large group outside. Kiru explains that the girl was being bothered by a random guy earlier, so he knocked him out, and now the guy has returned with reinforcements. Sue admires Kiru and determines that his virtue is being considerate towards girls. The random guy tries to say he has business with Kiru, but Sue ignores him, too busy admiring Kiru. Frustrated, the guy attacks, but Sakura quickly knocks him out. Everyone is stunned, and Sakura calls them lame for ganging up on someone. Bee wishes Sakura wouldn't taunt them so much. Sue tells the girl to stand back and assures her that the three guys on her side are really tough. Sue offers to let Sakura sit the fight out since he is still injured, but Sakura refuses. Kiru apologizes for getting them involved and declares that they should dispose of the group quickly. The fight begins, but everyone is surprised when the big, tough Sue is the first to get knocked down. Their surprise turns into amazement, though, when Sue stops the next attack and explains that he let the opponent get the first hit. Now it's his turn. He suplexes the guy straight into the ground and states that his virtue is letting his opponent shine first before stepping into the limelight. The fight continues, but Sakura gets upset because Kiru keeps flinging opponents in his direction. Kiru thought things would end quicker that way and shows off some of his strength. As the brawl goes on, Bee wonders why Kiru is making the others do all the fighting. Sue tells Kiru not to worry about what's behind him, assuring him that he's got his back. Kiru is glad to hear it, but a thug questions why Sue is just chilling and watching. Sue replies that he's just a chill guy before flipping the thug over. Kiru is amazed by Sue, and Sakura realizes that Kiru was preventing people from reaching a certain area. Moments later, Sakura rescues Kiru and tells him he can keep sending opponents his way. Kiru tries to thank him, but Sakura doesn't need it. Sue begs Kiru to send some opponents his way too. Minutes later, Nii is amazed to see that the fight is over, and Sakura remarks that all the thugs were weak. Sue wants Sakura to say band's motto, but Nii explains that Sakura is from out of town and doesn't know it yet. Sue takes the honor and declares that anyone who causes pain or brings destruction will be purged by Bothan. He says it a bit too loudly for Sue's liking. Sakura remembers hearing it before. Kiru tells the thugs to use their power for good from now on, and they agree before leaving. The girl thanks everyone for defending her. Kiru admits he didn't expect Sakura to be such a good fighter, but now it makes sense why Sakura is aiming for the top spot. He's glad to have learned this before they select their grade captain. Sakura has no clue what Kiru is talking about, but everyone gets distracted and asks for Sakura's contact information. He's so antisocial that he doesn't even know how to do that. Kiru decides to just enter his info into Sakura's phone and notices that Sakura only has one contact saved. To make things worse, it's just a number to hear the weather forecast. Everyone has a good laugh. Sometime later, Tachibana notices Sakura staring at his phone for a long time. She sees all the new contacts in his phone and adds hers too. Sakura gets added to a group text but doesn't understand why everyone wants to chat on their smartphones when they'll see each other at school. A mention of picking grade captains catches Sakura's attention, but the messages move too fast for him to ask about it. Overwhelmed, he just scarfs down his meal. When he arrives at school, he angrily demands to know what a grade captain is. Luckily, they were just about to start discussing it. Just then, the grade captain and secondary captains for the second years arrive. These guys are practically celebrities, and I never thought he'd see them up close. The second-year captain, Amato, tells the first years that they must pick a grade captain. Any problems in the class will be that person's responsibility. Sakura assumes it will be someone like Omiya. Suddenly, Su raises his hand. Sakura never expected him to volunteer, but he's even more shocked when Su points at him and declares that Sakura should be the grade captain. Sakura tries to object, but everyone starts agreeing. He tries to suggest Kiru instead, but they all point out that Kiru isn't suited for leadership. Sakura argues that he isn't either, and, most importantly, he's an outsider. The other students don't care, they've already seen enough to trust him. The 3 top skilled guys in the class are backing him, too. Su offers to be his secondary and suggests Na as the other. Sakura can't believe what's happening. The grade captain is like the top of the class. He only wanted the top spot for self-recognition, and now he feels like Choi. Just then, one of the second-year secondaries gets tired of waiting and tells Sakura to just accept it. His voice is loud, but when he removes his headphones, his normal voice returns. He explains that no one expects Sakura to be perfect, they can always switch him out if things don't go well. Sakura angrily insists that the second-year captain should decide, but he's shocked when Amato reveals that Kaji, not him, is the second-year grade captain. Amato then announces that Sakura will be the first-year grade captain. Sakura protests, but Amato reminds him that he just said the grade captain should decide, and Kaji already has. The second years exchange contact info with Na, and Amato tells Sakura to do his best leading the first years. Sakura has no clue how to do that, but Amato tells him to just do whatever he wants for now, which frustrates Sakura even more. As Kaji does his rounds, Sakura realizes that Kaji didn't even want to be grade captain, he just did it because his friends wanted him to. Sakura wonders if living up to his friends' expectations is enough. Na gives Sakura the gift they received for helping and compliments him on how he looked like a ninja while chasing after the cat. Na knew that they could count on Sakura because he's always so reliable. Sakura wants to confirm what Kaji told him, so he asks his friends if they chose him as grade captain because they are counting on him. They, of course, confirm it and assure Sakura that he can count on them too. Moments later, Sakura collapses inside Tachibana's restaurant after carrying an old lady. The old lady wonders if she has gained some weight. Sakura says it's nothing, but his face looks terrible. Tachibana wonders if he hasn't been sleeping. Her guess is right, but Sakura decides not to let her know that he was up all night thinking about what he should do as captain. Sakura is surprised when she asks if his class has chosen a captain yet and realizes that it must be him. She thinks he will make a great captain, but Sakura points out that he doesn't know what to do. Luckily for him, Tachibana has some simple advice: if he doesn't know what to do, then he should just start with what he can do. Sakura can't refute her good advice, so he just tells her to stay out of it. Tachibana keeps the good advice coming, though, and says that remembering his classmates' names and faces is something he can do. Calling people by their names will be a sign that he has taken a good look at them. Sakura suddenly realizes that he hasn't called anyone by their name before. Tachibana wants him to start practicing right away. However, he gets overwhelmed and just runs off. The old lady calls him bashful, but Tachibana thinks that Sakura is just afraid of building close relationships with people. When Sakura returns to school, he has Na tell him everyone's name. They wonder why Sakura is suddenly so interested in everyone, and he just explains that it wouldn't hurt to know more about them. His friends tease him, wondering if he even knows their names, which insults Sakura. Na continues naming people, but one kid named N seems upset and leaves the class. Just then, the first and second captains are told to meet on the roof with their secondaries. Na excitedly wonders what it could be and urges Sakura to hurry up. They arrive to find that everyone else is already there, and Karo is busy gardening. Amato explains that the first captains and secondaries are mostly guys who were famous in their middle school days. The second-year captains are mostly just carryovers from being captains or secondaries in their first year. Sakura is just frustrated because these are even more names and faces that he has to remember. Nii can tell that his friend is stressing out, so he starts going over everyone's names. Sakura can't believe that Nii knows all the captains' names, but Nii points out that he actually knows the names and faces of everyone at the school. Even So is shocked to hear this. N explains that he recently borrowed the school roster to memorize everyone's names. Nii knows that he's no use in a fight, so he figured he could make Sakura's life a bit easier by memorizing everyone's names for him. He is pretty determined, reminding Sakura that he promised to help him get to the top. So is impressed by Nii's contribution and decides that Nii will be their negotiator. The guys are confused, so explains that he's good at making others accept his requests. He declares that they should all do their best. Sakura is impressed by how well they know their strengths. He leaves those things to them, and his friends are shocked when he calls them both by their names. Mia shows up with more students, but Sakura gets annoyed at having to remember even more grade captains. However, Nii is terrified as he explains that those people are not grade captains, they are the 4 Knights of Furin High and their secondaries. Badass leaders from Fur and high-ranked Chikaku teams, Sabuko Kaku, Mizuki Zojo, and Mamos, arrive, along with Taman's team, Hiragi, and Yumiya. Yumiya thanks everyone for showing up and informs them that the people behind him will now be taking charge of Furin. But before getting into that, he has something more important to share. His garden has been fully transplanted, thanks to Kyoto's help. So, the summer barbecue is going to be amazing. Hiragi tells Yumiya that this isn't the time to talk about his garden, he gathered everyone here, so the least he can do is greet the new captains. Yumiya wasn't planning on giving a big speech, but he has something to say. He turns to everyone and tells them he's counting on them. He may be strong, but he can't be everywhere at once, and he can't look out for everyone all the time. So, he wants them to watch out for each other. Everyone promises to live up to his expectations and then starts chatting away. After a while, Yumiya walks over to Sakura's crew and is thrilled to see Sakura as a great captain. He also tells Na and Suo that he'll be counting on them, too. But if they ever get into trouble, they shouldn't hesitate to ask their upperclassmen for help. With that, the meeting wraps up, and Sakura and the others head back to their class. Once they return, TGA asks what the hell they were called up for. Nii brags about meeting the 4 heavenly kings. After school, they all head out together, and since there's no patrol duty today, TGA suggests they hit up the Muscle restaurant again. Nii is all for it, but the others shut him down right away. Just then, Sakura spots a couple of guys strolling through the streets in matching white jackets. They look pretty damn sharp. He asks if they're looking for someone. The leader of the 3 replies that they're searching for a Furin member, but since none of them fit the description, they turn around and leave. As they walk away, Suo notices the logo on their jackets and recognizes it as the Keel crew. Suo doesn't know much about them, but he's heard plenty of shady rumors. Suddenly, an old lady screams at the top of her lungs as she peeks into an alley. There, they find Nii looking beaten and bruised. Nii wakes up to see everyone worried about him. When they bring him inside and ask what happened, he makes up a story about being chased by a giant dog until he knocked himself out. Nobody buys it, not even Sakura. They press him to tell the truth, but he refuses and quickly makes an excuse to leave. Before he goes, Suo asks if it has anything to do with the Keel crew they saw earlier. Nii denies it, but his face gives him away. He still leaves to avoid talking about it further, but now that they suspect Keel, they wonder how Suo figured it out. He didn't have solid proof, but the guy earlier had that classic villainous vibe. Now, with this new info, Na asks Sakura what the plan is. If Keel really beat up Nii, they have to help him. But Sakura thinks jumping into action right away is too rushed. Besides, Nii didn't ask for their help, maybe he doesn't want to drag them into his mess. Even so, Na argues that it's their duty as his friends to help, whether he wants it or not. That reminds Sakura of what Yumiya said about looking out for each other. So, he suddenly rushes off. Before he leaves, the old lady offers him some food for the road as a gift. Flustered, Sakura takes it and storms off without saying another word. Elsewhere, Anai is seen talking with a girl at the playground. She's freaking out over how beaten up he looks, but he tells her he can handle it. She asks if he managed to convince Nagato to come back to their crew, but he hasn't had any luck. Anai is worried that if Nagato stays with Keel, he might cross a line he can't come back from. The girl suggests asking Bofin for help, but Anai refuses. Bofin protects the whole town, and this is personal for him. He doesn't want to drag everyone into it. The girl doesn't want him dealing with it alone and offers to go with him next time, but Anai shuts that idea down. It's too dangerous. After Anai leaves, she sits on a bench, frustrated. Sakura approaches and asks her about her conversation with Anai. She's hesitant at first, but Sakura says he's in the same class as Anai. After seeing his Furin uniform, she believes him and agrees to explain. Turns out she and Anai have been close since they were kids. They used to play together all the time. Then Nagato joined their crew, and even though they went to different schools, they thought they could stay tight. Recently, she bumped into Anai at the playground and wanted to catch up. When she saw his injuries, she figured he got into another fight. She wanted the three of them to hang out again, but Anai dropped a bombshell. He was beaten by someone from Keel. He saw some guys snatching purses outside of town and tried to stop them. When he grabbed one of them, he realized it was Nagato. She couldn't believe it. Anai wanted to talk to Nagato to hear his side of the story, but when he returned, he was beaten and refused to talk about it. All he said was that Keel was nothing but trouble. She feels helpless, knowing her friends are in deep trouble, so she starts crying. Sakura, struggling with emotions himself, reassures her that he'll bring Nagato back. She's relieved but still feeling hungry from all the stress. When she jokes about food, Sakura gets possessive over his, making her laugh. Later, in class, Anai tries to pass off his injuries as a bee attack, but nobody buys it. Sakura knows if he confronts him, Anai will just avoid the topic. Suddenly, someone from another class walks in and hands Anai a letter from a creepy hooded guy. Anai recognizes the description and freaks out. He opens the letter and turns pale. It's a picture of Nagato, bloody and beaten, held hostage by Keel. They demand that Anai meet them at the shipping yard. Anai tries to brush it off, but Sakura stops him and sincerely asks what's going on. Finally, Anai spills everything. 2 days ago, he saw a Keel member snatching an old lady's purse and grabbed him. When he pulled the hood down, he saw it was Nagato. Nagato freaked out, punched Anai, and ran. The next day, Anai returned to confront him and found Nagato being berated for not stealing enough money. When his superior threatened to beat him, Anai jumped in to help. But instead of escaping, Nagato was handed a stick and ordered to fight. Reluctantly, he obeyed and hit Anai. Anai doesn't understand why Nagato is still with Keel, but he knows he has to get him out. Sakura agrees and tells him to hurry so they can rescue him. Just then, the whole class arrives. They overheard everything. Anai insists that Furin shouldn't get involved since their duty is to protect the town, not interfere in outside affairs. TGA steps up, saying they're not helping as Furin members, they're helping as friends. Even Kyoto, who was napping, wakes up, pissed off and ready to help. With everything sorted, Class 1 heads to the abandoned shipping yard to rescue Nagato. From a window, Inamoto and his crew watch and wonder what the hell is going on. This was the end of Season 1. Thanks for watching, and subscribe for more anime recaps.